to bring him home. Tireless efforts, and I'm very pleased that we are now seeing that come to fruition today. As you know, I have no higher priority or focus than bringing home any unjustly detained American, wherever that is in the world. We won't rest until they're all home and, like Jeffrey, reunited with their families. This morning, I'll be launching the 2022 Human Rights Report. But just before I turn to that, I want to speak to what's happening right now in Moscow. Today and throughout this week, President Xi is meeting with President Putin in Russia. We expect that China may use this visit to reiterate calls for a ceasefire under its peace proposal. The United States welcomes any initiative that advances a just and durable peace. China's proposal includes elements that we have long supported, including ensuring nuclear safety, resolving the humanitarian crisis, protecting civilians. And indeed, the first element calls for upholding sovereignty, independence, and territorial integrity of all countries. The fundamental element of any plan for ending the war in Ukraine and producing a just and durable peace must be upholding the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine in accordance with the United Nations Charter. Any plan that does not prioritize this critical principle is a stalling tactic at best, or is merely seeking to facilitate an unjust outcome. That is not constructive diplomacy. Calling for a ceasefire that does not include the removal of Russian forces from Ukrainian territory would effectively be supporting the ratification of Russian conquest. It would recognize Russia's attempts to seize the sovereign neighbor's territory by force. It would enable Russia to further entrench positions in Ukraine. And a ceasefire now, without a durable solution, would allow President Putin to rest and refit his troops and then restart the war at a time more advantageous to Russia. The world should not be fooled by any tactical move by Russia, supported by China or any other country, to freeze the war on its own terms. Such a move would violate the UN Charter and defy the will of 141 countries who have condemned Russia's war in the United Nations General Assembly. One party to this conflict, Ukraine, has already put forward a just peace formula. If China is committed to supporting an end to the war based on the principles of the UN Charter, as called for in point 1 of its plan, it can engage with President Zelensky and Ukraine on the basis and use its influence to compel Moscow to pull back its forces. Russia's purported annexation of sovereign Ukrainian territory, including vast areas it doesn't even control, and its ongoing brutal attacks on civilians make clear that President Putin currently has no interest in such a peace. That President Xi is traveling to Russia days after the International Criminal Court issued an arrest warrant for President Putin suggests that China feels no responsibility to hold the Kremlin accountable for the atrocities committed in Ukraine, and instead of even condemning them, it would rather provide diplomatic cover for Russia to continue to commit those very crimes. Now, every year, I come to this podium for the launch of the Human Rights Report. I do so because the report embodies the importance of human rights for American diplomacy and for our vision of an open, free, prosperous, and secure world.
You've been listening to Secretary of State Antony Blinken address an American hostage that was released in Niger. Blinken also discussed the meeting between Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping in Moscow. We'll have much more at the top of the hour. You're streaming CBS News, always on.
Looking at nearly 200 countries and territories.
People from every corner of America facing challenges.
Everyone is just looking for some type of connection.
Just raise your hand and say, hey, I'd like to help.
Coming together to find solutions.
We are going to do something about it.
Their stories are our stories.